Hajime! Welcome to the first ever live episode of Shooting the Shit Vlog Talk here on Comic-Jutsu. Welcome, denizens of the dojo. This is not technically live, though it is recorded live before an audience of cats. Well, at least a cat of one. He might jump up and make an appearance. They often try to do that when I'm shooting the videos for the channel. So, I'm JT McRoberts. I'm the man behind the voice and all the books and pieces of art that you see, and of course the opinions on this channel. I thought I would take a few minutes today to just talk about what led to the creation of Comic-Jutsu. Well, it all started when I was just a little teeny tiny guy. Probably can't quite get that to focus, but there you go. You can see all the way back in the day, drawing at my desk, wall covered in original character designs, teamed up with Spider-Man and your favorite well-known superheroes. There you can see my giant Empire Strikes Back poster right behind me. Back when I was a little starry-eyed guy, before I made just every mistake that could possibly be made in trying to get into the world of creating comic books and producing stories of my own. I've really spent the last 10-15 years really focusing on creating a lot of film projects, and that all kind of wound down here at the advent of pandemic world, and I decided to just refocus myself on creating on working on projects that just involved me rather than continuing to try to organize so many different people. Even just working on a small film production, I mean, you still wind up having to organize 25 to 50 people, and then of course with the larger ones, I mean, you wind up with 100 or 200, and I'm completely worn out from all of that. I've took my swing at the bat. It takes so much money. It's really cost prohibitive, and every time I looked at it, it's just getting harder and harder to get the financing and the funding to get the better equipment in order to make your project look better and better. And I got to the point where I could push projects through. I mean, I could create them, I could produce them, I could get them all the way through, but I could never quite get the right level of equipment that I needed to give it that really professional look. And I'm sure somebody out there is saying, well, we don't have resources and we managed to do it. Well, good for you. I'm very happy for you, but I'm just speaking for myself. So I'm going back to my roots. I actually spent from I guess the middle of 2012 to the middle of 2014 working on what was my superhero script for a film. I wanted to make a film project, at this independent level. I thought, we could get on kind of at the height of the crest and of the superhero wave before it fizzles out, which I think we're kind of in the fizzling out stage. It's probably going to begin now. I just couldn't get everybody on board with it. All my production partners felt like the script was too ambitious. It was just beyond our scope. And in the end, I mean, they were probably right. I mean, we would have put a lot of time into it, and then people would have just dumped all over it because it didn't quite have the production sheen of Avengers Endgame, but that's the world we live in. But that's okay, because as creative individuals, we constantly reinvent ourselves and recommit ourselves to the artistic process. So that's okay. I'm happy with what I accomplished and what I created, and the projects are out there, even though they may slowly become lost media as they're not available on various platforms at the moment. But c'est la vie. What can you do? So what you see behind me, this is what I used to shoot the flip through videos. This is the old Mutantville banner for my production company, and I have it up because I have just stacks of books and magazines and stuff behind me. The comic book dojo / studio is an absolute mess, so it's better that you look at this than all the stacks of stuff that are behind me. It's definitely not an attractive picture. But probably for the last year or so, I had been thinking about relaunching a comic style brand, and that was how I came up with what became Comic-Jutsu. After the superhero film fizzled out, which was called Star Crossing, a superhero love story, I actually got to the point where it made it into Hollywood, and there were a couple studios that looked at it, that talked to me, that showed whatever that level of interest is. I mean, I don't think anybody was ever about to hand me a budget, but at least I had people look at it and talk to me, and that made me happy. It's always something that I wanted to do, and that opened the door to give me a chance to actually write a script that was an adaptation of somebody else's story, and I wound up doing that last year, and my adaptation didn't get picked up, but I got to check off another box. I always wondered, what would I do with a story that's not my own? How would I handle it? And apparently I would just try to turn it into a story of my own, where I just put all of those crazy elements into it and pushed it as far as it could go to make it more cinematic, and they didn't like my version, so that happens. So here I am. A lot of the feedback I got that I received for Star Crossing was, well, do you have a graphic novel? If we had this, we like this script, we like this story, but if we had this in the graphic format, it would be easier to pitch to potential investors. So some of the suggestions I received were, well, turn this into a graphic novel. Now, if you're like me, I expect my denizens of the Comic Book Dojo to be like me, in that you understand sequential illustration and film are not the same thing. They are very different. They move at different times. The viewer has no control over the film medium, whereas the reader, the comic book reader, can interact with the comic story, the sequential illustration, in a way that film cannot. It does not have that level of interaction. So the idea of adapting Star Crossing into a graphic novel myself, it just seems like an impossibility. I mean, I wrote it as a script to be a film, not to be adapted into a graphic novel. I would really have to retool the entire approach in the way of telling the actual story as a graphic novel. So I'm not opposed to, say, if there was some kind of artist that's like, boy, I wish I had a story to write. Like, there aren't a million people out there with story ideas. And I could say, hey, here you go. Why don't you try to adapt this into a 6-issue comic book series? If they wanted to do that, I would be happy to let them do that, to adapt Star Crossing, but I'm not going to do it. I would have to completely rethink it. It was created for the film medium, and that's where I want to leave it. So that pushed me back to, okay, well, what kind of graphic novel do I want to create? I mean, I spent years doing versions of roughly 20-page issues of comic stories, probably with 1, 2, 3 different sets of partners in attempts to build a studio, and things just never quite got off the ground. I mean, we would get to various stages of completion, but never quite to the publishing stage. As a young guy, my dream was, man, I'm going to work on Spider-Man one day. I want to work on X-Men, Captain America, Doctor Strange. All that changed when I went to my first few conventions at Heroes Con. Comic-Jutsu is not sponsored by Heroes Con. I'll throw that out, though I give them a little bit of lip service because it is my local major convention. It's something I go to almost every year, and I'm proud of it. And I've had a lot of great interactions with just a lot of amazing storytellers there over the years. I'm going to show you a couple things that have come from that during that time. I give them just an ounce of lip service, but not sponsored by them. So if there's a comic convention or a company out there that wants to sponsor Comic-Jutsu, you can do that. The other thing you'll hear me talk about is, aside from my film work, is the film festival and what I do with Mad Monster. And I'm actually rounding the corner on the latest festival for this year, for 2023. So we're about 3 weeks out from that right now. So I've been involved in that really heavily for like the past 3 months, which means going through, watching all the films, paring that down to the best of the films, communicating with the filmmakers, acquiring all the media, arranging the attending, making arrangements for the attending artists, all that kind of stuff. And again, this is I'm happy to wrap that up for this year and just refocus on just telling my story. So when I realized I wasn't going to be able to make Star Crossing as a film, and people kept saying, well, do it as a graphic novel, I said, you know what? I'm just going to do a graphic novel. I really think graphic novels are the way of the future. If you look at the way manga is presented in the States, it's not usually presented in the floppy single issue format. This is like, it's almost dead media at this point. I don't know who the monthly issues are for. It's just kind of an ongoing train that like longtime comic readers are addicted to and they want to keep up with. But I've just discovered over the years that when it comes to Marvel and DC, man, it's a ripoff to buy their books from month to month because they rip you off. Marvel and DC, they want fans who are not their fans. It's a strange thing to say, but if you actually enjoy their work, they don't want you as a fan. They want the mythical, theoretical, casual audience, the casual reader. These millions of fans that exist. They just want to create something that creates a pop that will draw all these people in who do not like comic books, who do not follow these characters, who do not care about the characters. That's all they want, is they want to make a pop to get 5 million casuals to come in and buy this one thing. Whereas the people that are fans and follow it from month to month and year to year, and in some cases decade to decade, you're not wanted. And in a lot of ways, you're just straight up hated. And you can see that by the way that the major companies approach the conventions. The conventions, aside from Heroes, which is still a comic-centric convention, a lot of the major conventions, they're just about films. They're about upcoming film projects. And they try to get, stupid comic book readers to hype up their film. That's how that goes. Check that out. That's what we're drinking from today. Jack Kirby Silver Surfer. Nice Diet Pepsi in there. Of course, out of my time MVP, we created Mutisha the Movie Goddess and Mutisha's Movie Morgue, which was our horror hostess retro review show. One of the things I'm really happy about. I created a lot of other things. I did manage to create a few graphic tie-ins to the work at MVP. And here you can see this was a nice computer-generated artwork. It is not AI. This is all done through like poser modeling and that kind of stuff. It's actually probably beyond poser. I just wrote the script for it, but the artist Carlos Nunez did all the work, and he did a phenomenal job. I mean, these pages, they look really good. Let me I'll pull one out so you can see the color a little bit better. There. Look at this. This is good stuff. There's Paimei, the White Hermit. I was writing Paimei stories before Quentin Tarantino put him in Kill Bill, so it just annoys the crap out of me that he did that. I was trying to rip off that character first. I'm an old school Kung Fu fan. Obviously, here in the realm of Comic-Jutsu. But when I realized Star Crossing's dead in the water, people want me to make a graphic novel, I said, okay, well, I'll do a graphic novel. I think it's easier to get a graphic novel into stores than it is to do a series of single issue floppies and then collect them as a graphic novel and then produce them. Now, mind you, if I didn't have to work a day job and I didn't have all these other obligations going on at the same time and all I did was create comics, then yeah, maybe doing a monthly issue where I had an audience that was actually going to pick it up, that would be the way to go. But I'm not at that point yet. And rather than go through the battle of trying to produce floppy after floppy and then collect it, let's skip those middle battles, make that one battle a little bit harder because it's going to be a bigger issue, but it's going to be a bigger collection. But with the cost of printing, I think it's easier to justify the cost on a graphic novel. Oh, here comes our cat audience. Than it is a he wants to say hello. Than it is to produce a series of singles. So this is Luke. He is the big brother to all the cats here in the house. He takes care of them teaches them how to cat, teaches them how to be safe outside and inside. He washes them off. He is Big Brother. So this is Luke. He's my buddy. He wanted to say hello. He's about to hit me in the face, I think, because he's mad I picked him up. I know. Look, we're talking to the comic book denizens out there, so you can't interrupt the video, buddy. But that was our cat cameo. I told you he was going to do that. So I spent a couple years then refocusing my idea, and this is, this is just me. I like to create the great work. I dedicate myself to the great work. Is it pretentious? Sure. Is it impractical in terms of creating something that you can put out on a regular basis that will build an audience? Absolutely. But if you think about it in terms of when you do create that great work, something like a Dark Knight Returns, something like a Watchmen, something like an All-Star Superman, it takes on a life of its own and it becomes perpetual, and it sells and sells and sells and sells over time. So if I can accomplish that great work somehow, that's what I aspire to. That's my aspiration. I want to make something that communicates to people on several levels, as well as being entertaining, okay? Because that's the problem I have with a whole lot of indie comics. They have a lot of great craftsmanship behind them, but at the end of the day, they're not entertaining. I don't find them engaging. So what I'm trying to create is somewhere between the realm of indie comics and superhero pop culture, some kind of synthesis of those, somewhere in the middle, but entirely all of my own. So when I talk about my graphic novel and I say buy my graphic novel, there's a reason I'm only saying that, because at this time, this is my graphic novel. It exists right here. It started in this book where I go through and I make notes, character notes, little sketches, ideas. I rework ideas. I'll jot down bits of dialogue. I might thumbnail out a page or two. If a whole scene hits me, I'll sit there and go through the entire scene. And when I fill up one notebook, I go on to the next one, and more ideas, more character ideas, more designs, just all kinds of stuff. And now I've moved on to the final stage, where I developed the plot lines for 500 consecutive issues in this particular storyline. Now, the graphic novel itself is only going to be comprised of the first 6 plots, but they're not going to be floppies. They're going to be presented in the graphic novel format, mind you. So instead of releasing like a bi-monthly book every other month, obviously, and then making a collection, just going to do the collection. So there's going to be a large gap of nothing being produced, and then boom, the graphic novel will be ready. Maybe it's not practical, but I don't care. This is how I want to do it. I don't want to take on 7 battles of creating issues and then a graphic novel. I'd rather just have that one battle of, let me get this graphic novel made. So I plotted out 500 issues to help with the subplots, to help me build subtext, just all of those things. And then inside 2 of these, I've started to I'm going through and breaking the plot down into thumbnails, just page by page. So go through and thumbnail and add dialogue on the side. And once I reach the end, which is important, then I go back and I say, okay, it's time to draw this thing. I pull up my morgue of photo references, my artistic inspirations. I'll keep those guys close at hand and just start drawing my way through this thing. But I've learned from my film projects over the years is that you can create something, you can force yourself to push through it, but unless you're being paid to create and just continually put that stuff out there, I don't think it's worth the effort to create something subpar. So I would rather the story be right. I would rather that I understand the composition of all the pages first before I put that first blue pencil line on the page and start creating the final product. And then, of course, I'm faced with, converting some things to digital and working with a few digital tools and that kind of stuff. So it's a big process. Let me see. I've got another little. Oh, here's some shrunken pages from one of my comic projects. This was from the Nick of Time series. You can kind of see this. This was drawn by John Dale Sneed from my script. But anyway, just gives you a little bit of an idea of, just kind of the visual feel of some of my stories and my type of storytelling. And my real prize is I was able to hire Gene Colan, the late great Gene Colan, may he rest in peace, to draw one of my designs of one of my characters, the Numbers Killer from C for Chaos. You can actually see C for Chaos on YouTube. We never completed it as a film project, so we converted it to an online web series. And plus, it's just riddled with technical issues and all that kind of stuff. But the bulk of it is there on YouTube, and you can check it out and see for yourself. So the idea with Comic-Jutsu was, okay, well, let's find a niche. And what is my niche? I love superheroes, I love comics, I love sequential illustration, I love film, have a background in martial arts. Believe it or not, I'm getting older and injured, so you can't quite tell, but if you look close at my hands and you see the gnarls, there are reasons for all of those. So the idea was, well, what if I did fight scene breakdowns for comic books? It's like, okay, that's the no-brainer. That gives me a niche. Okay, I haven't seen anybody else do this. Now that I've put it out into the universe, somebody else will probably come along and do it much better, but at least I've started it. It's my thing, because there are a lot of great reviewers out there. There are a lot of great professional artists that produce a lot of content. They share behind the scenes. They share, looks at their collections. They share reviews or just talk about the backstories of whatever. So, excuse me. Let me clear my throat. But one thing they are not doing is breaking down comic fight scenes, and it is becoming a lost art. So that's what we do. Comic-Jutsu, Comic Book Dojo especially, that's where we break down the fight scenes. We talk about the styles that went into creating these fight scenes. We talk about the good ones. We talk about the bad ones. And hopefully, some artists out there, maybe they'll pick up a hint or two and they can infuse, some of what we're talking about into some of their work. If not, at least it gives me something I can do where I can talk about it. As of this video, the views on this channel are pretty dismal. It looks like the only thing that I've created that people want to look at was my rarities episode of Grant Morrison's The Invisibles. So I'm going to do a walkthrough commentary of the entire Invisibles series. It's something I have to gear myself up for. I think I can use that to actually build the viewership on the channel. So fingers crossed that will work. But I've found the formats that work for me. It's easy for me to do a what comics did you buy this week. I can show off all the crap that I bought, because my time is a premium. I mean, really, I can't dedicate myself to creating content. I'm not interested in creating content. I mean, I like producing videos for Comic-Jutsu because it gives me the chance to talk about the medium. It keeps my head in the game, and it keeps me continually learning, and that's what I want to do. Lost my train of thought there for a second. Oh yeah, so what comics did you buy? The Comic Book Dojo, where I break down the fight scenes, or if you've seen some of the episodes, Phil K guest stars with me. He runs the local jiu-jitsu dojo, so it's good to have his expertise, and he's also a longtime comic fan as well. There's a lot of stuff that he's more familiar with that I'm not familiar with, and vice versa, so that's how that goes. The rarities episodes are fun because I get to show off all the stuff that's on my shelves, and I do have a few nice pieces. Now, of course, there are plenty of collectors out there to put anything that I have to shame, but this is me, these are mine, and I can share them with people, and maybe some folks out there will dig it too. But I think the Invisibles walkthroughs are going to be the key to building my viewership, so we'll see how that goes. I'm trying to maintain a regular schedule. It's been really hard over the past 2 months. I went from a daily posting series because I'm not able to create 7 pieces of content every single week. I just can't do it working full time. I mean, if I was not working full time, yeah, I could do it. Okay, but I'm not. If we reach the point where I can sit down at one of these videos, shooting the shit videos, and I can say, hey, I quit my job, I'm making comics full time, then that will happen. But we're not there yet. You know, I work, and they work me to death at my job. You know, like I said, I'm still doing the film festival thing. That's almost wrapped up, so that will free up my time, and I can really focus in, finish my thumbnailing efforts here, and get closer and closer to putting the pencil on the page and bringing this baby to life, and then putting it out there into a world that does not want to read it, that will not want to see it, and will not want to buy it. But, you know, that's what we do. That's our curse as artists, as creators, is if you have that thing inside you, you have to tell it. You have to express it. You have to put it out into the world. And if one person reads it and enjoys it, like with all of my film work, you know, that's enough. If you get that one piece of interaction, that one person that you connected with through the work, then that's what makes it worth it. You know, it's not about the money. It's not about the Benjamins, as they used to say. So I'm going to try to keep things going. You know, maybe I can make this shooting the shit vlogs a bit more of a regularity here on the channel. These are much easier to shoot. There's no editing involved, because the editing and rendering process is really a pain in the butt. I cannot shoot these flip through or commentary videos without actually having to pull them into Premiere to edit them. And then when they render off, I mean, they're taking hours and hours, and some of the bigger ones will take a day to render. So then I'm stuck with like dead time where I'm not able to produce anything else, and you know, then things have to be uploaded, and if they're big videos, then those take hours to upload. So it's a process. It's a continual train, just moving forward. It's like a treadmill that you're jumping on and continually stepping and running and running and running, just trying to stay caught up. So anyway, so there you go. So hopefully now you understand why I haven't talked more in detail about the graphic novel, not even the title, because the title is still a work in progress itself. Because the main character of the show, there's actually a character out there of the series. There's another character out there with the same name, but I created this character before that one existed, and I just refused to change the name of my character because this other character exists, which I actually cannot stand that particular character. But I'm not going to talk about it or badmouth anybody or anything like that. The goal is to speak positively about the things that I enjoy, the things that inspire me, and share that with the viewers out there, with all of my citizens of the Comic Book Dojo, as well as my down and dirty denizens. I know you're out there somewhere. So I think that's about it. Luke, you have anything else you want to add? I don't know, he's somewhere sulking behind me because I made him move from out in front of the camera. So there you go. There we have it. Okay, we've got a Comic Book Dojo on Moon Knight coming up. Phil K joined me to do another few episodes, so those are coming up. We'll probably do a What Comics Did You Buy this week. And once the film fest is over, I think I'll start those Invisibles walkthroughs, because I think that's what's going to draw some viewership to the channel. But that's going to take some effort on my part, reading through those and start trying to break them down in my mind, because that's a dense book, very, very dense book. So thanks for watching. JT McRoberts here. Remember to always like, comment, make sure you're subscribed, tell people about the channel, spread the word of Comic-Jutsu, and we'll see you next time. Mate!